Darwin Shurig, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to be here with you, John, and appreciate and humbled by the invite. Thank you.
It is really a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us south of Florida on a small island at a conference. You're taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me and to join me and have a really fun conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about nurturing trust and collaboration and the practical steps we can take to establish psychological safety and in our team environment. I just think this is a really, really important topic. So much of what we do as leaders and in our teams and in our organizations is built on a foundation of trust, built on a foundation of psychological safety. And if we don't have that foundation, a lot of the other things we try to do around culture building and team building just won't work. It just will fall flat. And so today we're going to try to get really practical around what we can do to take steps to create this. And I'm excited to have that conversation. As we get started, I wanted to share Darwin's bio with everybody. Darwin Shurig is a seasoned entrepreneur and talent management expert with a proven track record of delivering strategic value to medical device, life science, and pharma companies. He founded Shurig Solutions, Inc. in 2015 and is responsible for business development processes, contracting, and recruiting strategy, personally responsible for over $4 million in revenue generation while scaling a business that was paid $2.4 million in 2022 for the value it brings. I could add a lot. You have such a great background, a really great bio, but I'm going to pause there. Anything you would like to add by way of your background, personal context before we dive on in further?
Yeah, so I would just say that through sort of the evolution of this journey, I think it's so important when I talk to people about when they look at opportunities that the main thing they should really look at is who will they become by going through that process. But what this journey for me has really evolved from is first, anytime you start a business, so many businesses don't succeed. So just figuring out how to stay in business and bring value. But then after kind of getting through that process, what I really focus on helping people do and companies is hire the right talent that fits the company culture. So the personal why matches the mission. So therefore you have higher employee engagement, less wasted resources, and the company can actually succeed, be profitable, and grow. And when you look at the reasons why companies fail, there's eight to 10 major reasons over a lot of data and industries, but it really comes down to leadership relevant to mission and vision, company alignment or misalignment, and the right or wrong talent. So whether you look at that from a macro economics down to the micro, right? In this case, you sort of spoke at the beginning about how important emotional intelligence, safety, connecting with people. I call that servant leadership. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. But whether you look at it the micro or the macro, it all ties in, is extremely important in terms of people being productive as well as enjoying what they do. And then also staying at the company, which is really important for your top talent because 25% of the talent walks out the door every single year relevant to annual voluntary turnover. So understanding how all these things tie together so that we can have the greatest chance for success, whatever our industry or business is, I think is vitally important because we learn so much right from the past in terms of what works and what doesn't. So why would we not look at that and utilize it to help us be successful?
Yeah, you hit on a bunch of really important things. And the bottom line business case for all of this is that we want to attract and retain good people because good people are what make the business happen, right?
Yes.
Organizations can't exist without good people. And I think that gets lost sometimes, like because we're just trying to, stay afloat. We're trying to get the products or services out the door. We're trying to keep customers happy. We're trying to, stay, in positive revenue and we're just trying to make payroll, like all the things that we need to do to just keep the doors open. And sometimes it can get lost that like we actually need good people to do all of the things that we need to do for the business. And it's the people that create the value. It's the people that are creative and create the products and services. It's the people that innovate. It's the people that create the customer experience and create the customer loyalty and commitment. It's the people that do all of these things. And so sometimes if we start to get stressed about, making the payroll or getting to that next, quarterly report, and we're looking for ways to cut budget, or we're looking for ways to, trim the fat or whatever, one of the first things we often do is look for ways to cut labor costs, because that's one of the most expensive pieces of our budget oftentimes. And we forget, like, it's the people. So
Yes.
how do we reinvest in the people? How do we make sure we get the right people in the organization? Jim Collins, get the right people in the right seat on the bus, right? And then keep them, hold on to them,
Yes.
and not let great talent out the door. People who otherwise would want to stay with us because they had a bad experience, because they see a more enticing offer somewhere else, because they don't feel valued. Now they're going to leave and go to our competitor. That is such an important part of doing business. And frankly, as an HR person, as an OD and change person, it's something I see so many organizations struggling with. And it's something that is not completely avoidable, but it's often quite avoidable, if we simply put some intentionality and strategy behind, what we're trying to do. We put so much time and effort around the maintenance of equipment, for example, around the maintenance, and reinvestment into the other forms of capital in our
Yes.
business.
Mm.
Can we do that for our human capital, for the people assets within our business? And if we did, we wouldn't have such high turnover. We wouldn't have, the challenges, a lot of the challenges that we often have. And again, coming back to what we were saying at the very beginning, a lot of that is just built upon this notion of, like, let's have trust, let's have psychological safety.
Mm.
That's the foundation upon which a lot of these other components that lead to positive business outcomes, like lower turnover, higher productivity, greater levels of innovation, etc. That's what it's built upon, right?
Mm. There are so many things that, like, my mind is just firing and getting excited just about having this conversation. And so there are three things I want to touch on relevant to what you just said that are so important. The Pareto principle is alive and well, and is probably not understood near as well as it should be, relevant to 80/20.
Mm-hmm.
And as a adjunct to that, McKinsey and Company's State of the Organization report from 2023,
Mm-hmm.
the data showed that 5% of the companies polled, that 5% of their talent brought over 90% of the value to the company, which is extraordinary. And as another subsegment of that, they showed that for the key stakeholders in some of these companies, where every 3 to 6 months they took them, reevaluated, and put them on another project, that their productivity went through the roof, and they beat their competition from a profit standpoint significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So your top talent is vitally important, number one, and understanding how important to attract top talent that fits the culture. So I think there's two really key things relevant to talent, and if you understand the Pareto principle and how important it is to hire the right people. From that, your hiring processes need to be really, really, they need to be focused on not just how you interview, but attracting that talent and evaluating, which means you have to differentiate between the technical skill that you want to hire versus the cultural fit. And you can hire somebody that's just amazing, but if they don't fit the culture, leadership IQ's data shows that for mishires, that only 11% was because they didn't have the actual skill they were hired for. The
Mm-hmm.
other 89% was low emotional intelligence, not being coachable. They have poor temperament, so they don't play well in the sandbox with their toys, and they weren't motivated. So having somebody that has a personal why that matches the company mission, because in terms of why companies succeed or fail, that's a huge component. And I mean, we can piggyback on that later, relevant to the world of medical device and pharma. But when you look at compliance and regulatory fines and weight, like, it all comes back to the wrong talent. And there's all this data, whether it's clinical trials, quality, regulatory. So how you determine who you bring in, and then having career ladders so that you nurture the people and provide mentorship, provide opportunity for growth. It's not just about the bottom line, because if you focus on bringing great value to your client, and in my world, that's patients and clinicians and the healthcare system, with a team that's in alignment and Personal Y matches the mission focused on bringing that value, then your financials, the stakeholder will follow that. So lastly, I would say what really hit me as you were talking about investing in equipment and systems, we have, checkoffs. If we don't do these things, then we're out of compliance, then it breaks down or we get fined. So I always ask when I present on talent management strategies and why companies succeed and fail is if your quality management system for your talent and your investment in your talent and your top stakeholders matched the quality management system for your product or your service, would that be a good thing or a bad thing?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an interesting question. And there's always a utility component to this, right? And I suppose that question, the answer to that question is going to differ depending on the industry you're in, the type of business that you're in. But I guess the point is you want to ask yourself that question, right?
Yes.
So I don't have an answer to the question, but you want to be asking yourself that question. And ultimately you want to be really considering, are you doing enough? Are you investing enough in your people, relevant, in relation to what you do for reinvestment in maintenance and compliance and such to your other types of processes, your equipment, your property, your other forms of capital. I mean, that's just a very basic question, but it's a really relevant question.
And even if you think about capital, when you upgrade or when you determine, okay, we're going to write this off and depreciate it now, as a cost of doing business, but annual voluntary turnover across all industries has typically averaged around 25%. So that means 1/4 of the company's talent is walking out the door each year. And going back to the Pareto principle and your key stakeholders that bring the most talent, oftentimes it's people you don't want to lose. If you have somebody that maybe wasn't the best hire or something's changed, they're not interested in growth, they're on a PIP, they'll stay as long as you let them.
Exactly. It's the best people usually that are the ones out the door because they're getting better offers.
Yes.
They're more valued somewhere else. Exactly.
And the four main reasons why people leave based on the data and surveys for people relevant to annual voluntary turnover is the number one leader, a disconnect. They don't feel they have a relationship there, or that person isn't respected because of the way they lead. Number two, they don't feel appreciated. Number three, they're doing work that they don't want to do, didn't expect to do for a sustained period of time. Yeah. And then lastly, because they feel it's the only way they have a chance to grow, which their career. So 70+% stated that. And so then it's, well, how important is how you structure mentorship, annual employee appreciation programs, career ladders? Is your company a company where you can only grow your career vertically, which means your manager has to leave or the company has to expand in a way that there can be growth? Or is the company more proactive from a vision standpoint that, hey, I've got an extremely talented person that fits the skills that I need, and they emotionally, their Personal Y matches the company, they brought value. So do they have other skills so they could grow vertically or they could grow horizontally into another area? Because I already have somebody that fits and they probably have other skills that we could nourish. And that is most likely a better bet for the company as well as that person that you could invest in versus going out and trying to find a new person and hope that they fit the culture. And so I think companies that really understand and are willing to invest in career ladders proactively and give the ability for their top stakeholders to grow, kind of like that McKinsey study talked about, taking somebody and putting them maybe to an area they hadn't done, but they already know they can execute and they already know they care about the company's success. So I think it's a really important thing, as you said, to ask yourself and to think about in terms of investing in your talent, because if you don't invest in them, then somebody else most likely will.
Yeah, and just, to talk about my own experience for a moment. I don't want to make this all about me. We've all had these experiences, right? And not that I'm the greatest, thing ever, but I'm a pretty productive, successful person. I've had a lot of successes in my career. I think I'm very
Absolutely.
capable. Um, but I've been there, I think many of us have, where we have felt undervalued, underappreciated, underutilized. We've maybe felt looked over or passed over for promotions or opportunities. I've been at places where literally I feel like, I don't know for sure, but what it's felt like is that literally the people above me who have passed me over, um, like are almost insecure and threatened by me. Like they look at what I do and my productivity and what I could do in relation to what they can do,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel threatened by me, and they literally don't want me moving up because they're worried about their jobs, or something like that. And
Yes.
that gets into a level of toxicity where at some point you just don't even want to be there anymore at that organization, right? And
Yes.
so, you know, all of these things you just listed off a bunch of really good data points and insights, around some of the surveys that talk about the research behind this. All of these are reasons why people leave, and
Mm-hmm.
it's usually the really good people. It's the best people.
Yes.
The average, folks, the people who are kind of the mid performers, or even the ones that are barely hanging on. They're the ones that'll stick around because they know they don't have a lot of prospects, and they're happy to have a paycheck. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to hang on to those people, but are those the people you want? Those are that other 10-20% that do very little work. And then you lose all the great people who do like the vast majority of all the work. And
Yes.
it's kind of insane. Um, the other aspect of it is not only do you lose, you have the voluntary turnover of the great people that you lose, who have a lot of talent, who have a lot of productivity, a lot of innovation, but there's the ripple effects too. There's the ripple effects around the culture of losing the great people, because everyone who stays behind after you lose a great team member, they know it and they feel it, because
Yes.
now they recognize, oh, we just lost a member of our team who did a disproportionate amount of all the work that the team did, or all of the productivity from the team. Now we have to pick up the slack. We know that's going to be hard or impossible, and they recognize that and they know it, and it's frustrating. Sometimes it's just not even doable, right?
Right.
And then there's all of the negative outcomes that come from that. So it's just, if we want to create dynamic workplaces, dynamic environments, we the bottom line is we need to show our people, up especially our best people, that we value them, that we
Yes.
appreciate them, that there are pathways for them to grow, to develop. And that doesn't mean necessarily up the hierarchy, but like you said, maybe it's horizontally. Maybe, the kind of traditional hierarchical, up going up the rungs of the ladder, career development pathways, those are kind of going out the window anyways. Like that's kind of an old model. That's for generations past. Like the younger generations don't necessarily even see careers that way anyways. So like let's think more creatively about career development and career pathways. Younger generations just want to develop skills. They want to develop their capabilities. um, yes, they want to develop their capabilities around earning capacity, but they don't necessarily care about the title, or they don't necessarily care about, the corner office, or like the rung on the ladder, but they do want to stretch themselves. They do want to grow in their skill set. They do want to challenge themselves. And these are all things that organizations can do, regardless of whether or not they have like actually another rung up the ladder or in the hierarchy, the pyramid of the organization. If we can get creative, we can develop those opportunities for our people, and show that we value them, right?
Well, there's so many smart points about what you just said and what you were talking about your experience originally, right? John Maxwell, the law of the lid. And so people tend to, angry people attract angry people, creative people attract creative people. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the law of the lid, if you hire people that are a 6 out of 10 in leadership, they're going to have a real hard time attracting somebody above that level that would work for them, especially if they're not open or understanding of the principled philosophy. They're going to hire people lower, and more likely to be threatened by them, where people hire up the wrong, people that are really great at certain things understand they need mentorship. Tiger Woods is a one example from when he was just killing at golfing. He's got 2-3 people looking at, he's the best in the world, and he has 2-3 people looking at his swing, every single aspect of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so the idea of servant leadership and understanding the idea of empowerment and hiring the right talent and focusing on whatever your client, your patient outcomes, the benefits there, and then a team that is like valued for alignment to focus on that as actual people, and everybody cares about what the end results are, you're more likely to have higher employee engagement. And the idea of being you're giving them everything that you can to help them grow. You're not worried about them taking your job. You'd love for them to replace you because you're bringing so much value. Your company would move you into another area because you're helping the company. But too often the inverse of that, which you mentioned in your initial, your career, that happens way too often, which is not in the best interest of the company and why you will lose people. So again, how you invest in your talent, because in terms of replacing talent, the cost is, the cost of mishires are exorbitant and huge, but the cost of replacing the person, one example I give in one of my presentations, just like on a clinical trials manager, for example, you're looking at $80,000 to $140,000 in time, in recruitment, in training, in onboarding. If that person is, if you have to backfill a position and it's open for 6 months, the cost is significant. Forget about the cost of the mishire. So when you get people that are the right talent and skill set, investing, because anything transactional, you're going to get transactional results. But if you can look at ways to invest into your people, into mentorship, into growing as a leader, there is no standstill. So, I believe we're either growing or we're dying. If you leave the equipment and you never do anything with it for a week, it's either getting better or it's getting worse, relevant to how it works, manufacturers, productivity. So in the same way, how we invest into our people, into the culture that we want proactively, is going to determine, it's going to affect our retention rates, our annual voluntary turnover, and ultimately how well we engage. Neurologically, scientifically, studying data shows that when we are more positive, we're in a positive frame set, we're 30% more intelligent, we're 30% more likely to problem solve. So if we have a team that is excited about what they're doing and engaged, they're going to be more likely to problem solve, and you'll have less wasted resources. The company will be more profitable, and you'll have greater longevity with a better chance of holding on to your key stakeholders. So it is something that I think so many companies don't do. And when you look at 40% of startups don't make it the first 2 years, half of those are gone at year 5, and 80% don't make it 10 years. It's so important to look at, because the data and across all industries shows that it is a specific and very direct correlation to whether or not there's success.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Darwin, this has just been a really fun conversation. I note the time, it's flown by. We've only scratched the surface here, but I do need to let you go. As we wrap things up, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is it. It feels like we've been talking for about 5 seconds. So I really appreciate it, John. But www.shurigsolutions.com is our website. We have a following on LinkedIn, a podcast called SSI Executive Conversations as well. But our focus is, medical device and pharma companies that are life sciences that are manufacturing products, helping them hire leadership and skill positions around clinical, regulatory, quality, engineering, and even commercial, to help create those cultures and avoid the cost of mishires. Over that time, our offer acceptance rates average 94%. 53% of candidates have been promoted within 24 months, and then they stay a third longer than the industry average relevant to retention. We have a really unique process called Top Talent Accelerant that uses certain technologies to attract talent in a completely different fashion and also create significant efficiency for our partners, which is pretty cool. And every single day I hear, I've never seen anything like this over the last year since we launched it. So certainly would love to, if anybody, we've also done, hospital physician type of work as well. So certainly would love to talk to anybody that, is looking for a partner and would like to take these principles that we're talking about and apply them to processes to help the company grow. And then, as far as a final word, I think once again, understanding what type of culture do you want? You spoke to this earlier. I mean, if you're a law firm and you're looking for cutthroat, lawyers that can do certain things, you probably want a different personality to your culture than if you're leading a nonprofit that's helping orphans, maybe, So understanding what are your key values, determining 4 to 5 of those key values, and you actually want to create in your interview process structure around those to delineate culture, have certain people asking certain questions. There's a process we can share what that looks like versus whatever the technical skill is. And whatever the technical skill is, there should be a process to evaluate consistently so you can compare and contrast talent from that standpoint. And then you can use the two to help make better decisions to hire for culture. But again, if you do transactional, you get transactional, and hiring top talent that fits the culture, right? That has the skill set, but fits the culture. If you do that well, you avoid the cost of mishires. And then by creating career ladders and investing in people and leadership, mentorship, and giving them opportunities to grow, you'll keep your Pareto principle amplifiers is what I call them. So therefore, your retention rates will be greater overall for your top talent, and you're going to be more likely to be more profitable, and people are going to be having more fun. So I guess that would be my final parting comment in that regard.
I love it. Thank you so much, Darwin. It's been a complete pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Darwin and his team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.